Good evening, and thank you for watching. My name is Michelle Kauk, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections hosts debates so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. Candidates that have a contested general election have been invited to participate in the debate. Candidates that have opted into the Clean Elections Clean Funding Program are required to participate, while traditional candidates are invited and encouraged to attend. Please note, candidates from both the Senate and House may be participating in the debate tonight. As the moderator, I will ensure candidates have the opportunity to engage directly with their respective opponents. However, tonight we have one from each chamber. The questions that will be asked this evening are coming directly from voters. Leading up to the debates, Clean Elections conducted outreach to voters across the state, soliciting questions for the candidates. Voters that are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email at debates@kc-a.com, by text 928-362-1062, or phone at 480-937-1297. When you submit a question, please make sure to specify if your question is for a specific candidate or for all candidates. We do screen questions for clarity to eliminate duplications, speeches, personal attacks, or any of the above for the candidates. This debate is scheduled for 1 hour, so we may not get to all questions, but we will do our best. Candidates, you will have 1 to 2 minutes for your opening and closing statements, and 1 to 2 minutes for your responses to voter questions. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue tonight. If you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments, you may do so. I may limit responses for time management purposes. And we remind the candidates and the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. For tonight, for this district, the candidates running for state senator are Garland Shreves, who has joined us tonight, and State Senator Rebecca Rios. Candidates running for the state house are Tatiana Peña, who is here tonight, and Representatives Reginald Bolding and Diego Rodriguez. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by starting with the Senate for opening comments, and we'll progress from that point. So for tonight, we'll start with you, Garland, for your opening remarks.
Well, thank you. My name is Garland Shreves. I was born and raised here in South Phoenix in this district. I grew up poor. I feel very blessed to be where I am in life, and I care deeply about our community. I think that people are far more important than party. I would be considered, without a doubt, a moderate on many issues. I want the potential voters to realize that we have a lot of serious issues in this district that I think need to be addressed. And one of the things I want them to understand is that oftentimes people feel that politics is very much controlled by special interest and money, and oftentimes it is. But I want the voters to know that I have rejected all endorsements. I have rejected any potential donations from special interests, PACs, committees, and lobbyist lawyers. And I can say that if you look at my financials, you'll see that I've only taken money from individuals. The monies that I've taken are from individuals that would self-identify with many labels, whether they're straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender. I'm proud of the fact that I have a wide range of support, both from Republicans, from Democrats, from independent voters. And I think it's very reflective of what this district is. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be able to throw my hat in the ring. It's not easy to run in politics, regardless of your party today. It's so visceral. I hope that I bring a little bit of kindness, if you will, to this process, and compassion, and hope to be an advocate and a voice for those who feel they may not have one.
Thank you, Mr. Shreves. Now, Tatiana, your opening remarks.
All right, thank you for having me here. First and foremost, I'm Tatiana Peña. I'm running for State House. I was born and raised in South Phoenix. I was educated in South Phoenix, Guadalupe, and Tempe. I'm a teacher by trade, have a master's in public administration, and have been politically involved at the local, state, and federal level. I'm a mariachi, a mother of four, a wife, and a faithful Christian. I am the only candidate who will defend your rights to send your child to your school choice, whether it be public, charter, private, or homeschool. I'm the only pro-life candidate. I want real healthcare for women in our community. We do not have enough OBGYNs, help for crisis pregnancies, or hospitals. I am the only candidate who will defend the rights of parents to teach moral issues and protect the innocence and safety of the children in our community. I am a strong advocate to help our community members heal from addiction and mental illness and to pass real criminal justice reform. I will fight for our freedoms of religion, speech, and the right to bear arms. I know that Arizona is affordable and small business friendly through less taxes and government. Look, our sitting incumbents have deemed themselves non-essential workers when we needed them to act and work for us. And what greater testimony than to see that they're not even here. I will be your essential worker who will be there to work on the issues we need resolved. And en español, nací y fui criada en el sur de Phoenix. Estoy para los derechos que tienen los padres para escoger las mejores escuelas para sus hijos sin importar cuánto dinero ganan o dónde viven. Soy la única que es provida y defiendo los valores de los latinos sobre la familia y protegiendo la inocencia de los niños. Quiero reformar la justicia penal en Arizona. Quiero menos impuestos y voy a defender nuestras libertades. Seré la trabajadora esencial para nuestra comunidad en el estado. Gracias y thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will get into the voter questions right now. So I just want to give a reminder, if you're watching the debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email, debates@kc-a.com, by text, 928-362-1062, or by phone, 480-937-1297. For the first question, I will go ahead and start with Ms. Peña, since I started with Mr. Shreves with opening remarks. One of the comments that came in is in regards to crime rates. Phoenix has a higher violent crime rate than LA. Our current law enforcement in Phoenix is 800 officers short. By defunding the police, how would you curb the crime rate and protect the community of LD27?
So I am not in favor of defunding the police at all. I was definitely aware that we are that low in our numbers. We know that Phoenix is growing about 200 people a day. That's a lot that we are growing on a regular basis here. And if we are growing in our population, but we don't have enough law enforcement, guess what happens with the crime? The crime goes up and up and up. And to be honest with you, here, growing up in South Phoenix, you know, we had great relationships with our law enforcement. Now, that's something that we obviously need to make some changes and fix some things, because we have had a lot of issues where people from the communities, you know, minority communities, may feel where there are some threats or maybe they're being targeted. And I have seen that happen personally in my life. Garland and I had actually put together a community justice pledge on June 2nd of this year. We were actually in agreement with our counterparts from the other side on what are some things that could be done to help strengthen our law enforcement and the relationship that we have between the law enforcement and regular citizens in this community. Both Garland and I have pledged that we will do what we can once elected in the state to make sure that we follow through. It's on our page, so you can check it out. You can check out the fine details. There's about 6 different things. Body cameras on all law enforcement officers is the first. Investigations for deadly use of force. Police officer database. AZ post training. Community policing website, and accountability for unlawful acts. So these went in, in agreement with what the counterparts from the Democrat Party were actually advocating for. So we wanted the people in the community to understand that we know these issues exist, but we are not for defunding the police. We are for fixing the problems that exist and making it better and more reliable.
And Mr. Shreves, I will go ahead and ask you the same question regarding crime rates. Do you need me to repeat the question, or are you ready to go?
No, I fully understand the question. One, I oppose any defunding of the police department. Crime in this district is very high. A lot of people don't realize we had 16 homicides in the first 90 days of this year, from January to end of March. We had 4 in January, 4 in February, and 8 in March. We've had literally thousands of home burglaries, robberies, assaults, and that's in just the first 90 days of this year. But over the last couple of years, thousands, tens of thousands of people have been victimized by crime. So the community pledge that Tatiana mentioned, it's a fact. 5 of the 6 items or 7 items that we have on the pledge, we actually got from our counterparts who had sent a letter to the governor. Rebecca Rios was not on that, but the 3 Democrats in the House of Representatives for this district had drafted it. It was full of visceral poison. So what we did is we took those 5 essential items that they talked about, and I removed the visceralness from it and took the core of what they wanted to do. In the end analysis, we used to have programs that was called like PALS, Police Athletic League, that would help interact with youth to help develop a respect and also knowledge about the community. Well, we did away with that funding. After 9/11, a lot of police departments became very militaristic and they got away from community policing. You can tell by looking at this little pin right here. I support law enforcement. I work for a law enforcement agency, a prosecuting agency. I can just tell you for a fact that I think that we need greater community involvement in policing, and we need to return to community-based policing programs. It will reduce crime, and it will help the community connect better with the police, and I think it would do a lot to diminish the issues that we have today.
I have a follow-up for both of you to that question about police funding. A lot of the dialogue that has taken place, you mentioned having 6 issues on your website collectively that you would address, but if you're familiar with the 8 can't wait policy proposals, those measures have shown that when adopted, if those 8 measures are adopted by a police department, it can reduce police-related violence by up to 72%. So when you put your 6 together, was there consideration of that list or looking to local law enforcement and how maybe the state as a whole could adopt an 8 can't wait policy?
Who would you like to go first, myself? I haven't looked at the 8 can't wait. All I can do is speak to the pledge that we took. The pledge that Tatiana and I took, we signed it, we posted it on our website. You can go to garlandaz.com and you can actually see the pledge. Those are things that we will promote and propose if elected, both in the Senate, myself and Tatiana in the House. And those measures actually went a little farther than what the Democrats did. The Democrats in the House who drafted the letter, what I call the visceral letter, it was about creating poison, not trying to solve a problem. I want to solve a problem. Tatiana wants to solve a problem. We want to recognize that our community wants us to do something about criminal justice reform. Even prior to all of the riots back in February, when I announced that I was going to run for the Senate, I did a video. It's on my campaign website, garlandaz.com, that talks about criminal justice reform. Criminal justice reform is very broad, but there are many components and very many pieces that go with it. So it isn't just reforming community policing. It is a very large, encompassing process. And it doesn't get solved by one individual or one politician. It really is going to take bipartisanship. And that's why I thought it was important to look at what the Democrats had originally proposed in the letter to Governor Ducey, take those 5 items, review it, tweak it, add to it, so it's actually substantive. In our pledge, we talk about seeking how are we going to get the money to do the things that they talked about in the letter, because it doesn't matter what we talk about if we don't go after a method to seek the funding. So our letter goes in depth, our pledge goes in depth about how are we going to get the money, and without the money, you can't do anything.
And I'd like to add to that. I have not had the chance to read that 8 piece that you're talking about. So I before I make any decisions, I always have to study it. So I'd be happy to look into that and understand how that could work together, and if there is more that we can add, of course. First of all, one thing that there's been a lot of focus on throughout social media and just even in person here in the Valley, a lot of people are paying attention to what law enforcement does to protect our communities with children. I've actually held a Facebook Live where I had a specialist, an online safety specialist. He works on the crimes against children that are committed online when you have online child predators. That's one factor, one thing that they work on as law enforcement. They also work on child trafficking issues. I haven't heard anyone on the other side talk about child trafficking. This is something serious. There are actual cases happening in our district. Arizona Mills a few years ago was a big place where these pedophiles, these perpetrators would feed on. They would prey on children. They would catch them. They would take them away, and then they'd start using them. Our law enforcement are the only ones that take care of that. So when you are talking about defunding the police, or if you're attacking the police, like, who is going to save the children? Who? So that's something I'm very passionate about. Always about being that voice for the children, because a lot of times when it comes to politics, they're the ones that are left out of the conversation. They are the first ones that are left out of the conversation. It's always conversations that adults are arguing between each other, and it's really unfortunate because the children are the ones that are going to be impacted the most. Another thing I wanted to bring up is that I have just within like the last few days, and I haven't posted it yet, so I apologize, but I just received an endorsement from law enforcement. I am a clean elections candidate, so I have not been getting any funding from any special interests, any lobby groups, nothing of that sort. But I can receive endorsements from groups that say, hey, you know what? She's our girl. We like her. And so I was really happy, and I'm proud that law enforcement are behind me. They're supporting me. So I'll be posting that on Facebook and on my page. My page is www.tatianapeña4az.com and at Peña4az on Facebook. You can follow me there.
Thank you. Well, Tatiana, you led into the next question, which was in regard to fighting child sex trafficking as it relates to police funding. So I'll take it a step further. The governor has a task force for this. It's very well known, but is the state doing enough? Should the state be looking at dedicating more funding to help address this issue that has garnered quite a bit of attention in the last couple of weeks?
I think one thing we really have to do is give it attention. We need to be talking about this within our communities. I don't feel like enough people know about this. Right now, we have our children, a lot of our children in Arizona are unable to go to school in person. And this terrifies me. I feel like no one's really talking about this. They're afraid of the backlash they'll get, like, oh, you're the reason why COVID-19 is spreading. But there's a lot of children right now in our community. Their parents are both working. Sometimes it's a single mom, or it's an elderly grandparents that are watching them, and they don't know how to help them, or sometimes there's no one at home to watch these children. Trust me, I taught in South Phoenix, and even when I was teaching kinder and first grade, there were situations where I knew these children, as soon as they went home, they were home unattended until mom and dad came home. So right now, these children are unattended, as they are doing their online studies. Some children just don't even have access to the internet. Other children have access to the internet, but don't know about child predators that are, trying to reach out to them. People that are this is prime time to do this to children, to reach out to them and to try to hurt them. So we need to have those conversations. We need to educate parents about these things. And quite frankly, we need to find a solution within the schools, especially for the families that are needing it, for children to have in-person learning, because the options that I've been seeing are very limited. And I know there's a lot more families that need it. The other options I'm seeing is that they're saying, oh, well, you can pay this much a month and you can have your child sit in the daycare for online learning. Another thing with online learning, not to get off the subject, but since we are on
we're going to have to come back to that one. It's certainly going to be a conversation that we'll have throughout here. So why don't we press pause on that? Because I probably got a lot more to share. And Garland, why don't you address if you feel that the state is doing enough or spending enough to combat child sex trafficking?
Well, I don't know that you could ever spend enough. There's only so much resource that you have. Tatiana just briefly touched on it, but I want to just share with you the importance. Children who are at risk generally report what's occurred to them when they return to school, usually after a break, after the summer, those kind of things. That's why you see a spike. And if you're curious, how do I know that? What do I do for a living? Where do I work? I work for a prosecuting agency. That prosecuting agency will see a spike in reports right after summer or breaks. Children return to school. Right now, we have children who are probably in high-risk situations that are probably being abused and have no way of telling an adult because where they live or their environment, they don't feel safe to be able to say it to someone. So the sooner we can get our schools open, the sooner these high at-risk children will have the ability to make those reports and get to family advocacy centers that exist, both either in Maricopa County or any one of the other 14 counties in our state. The issue of these at-risk children being abused, it isn't just the abuse, but also realize that many children, especially in our district, no one's advocating for them. Mm-hmm. No elected official is running their mouth to speak up and say, look, these at-risk kids not only are being potentially abused and no way to report it, but they're also not getting their breakfast. They're not getting their lunch. Some of these kids only get that attention at school. And as unfortunate as that may be, I don't care what your political label is, we have to raise that as an issue and get our kids back to school. We need to find a way to make teachers feel safe. I think safety gear for them, whatever's going to, that teacher feels safe.
We'll get into the COVID dialogue here a little bit later, but let's press
safety
pause.
For children. Let's agree on this. Regardless of political party, safety for children is important, and getting children back to where they can be able to report abuse should be a priority.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's switch gears here a little bit with another question that came in from a voter. In regards to spikes in COVID, Mexico is reporting huge spikes with infected cases. There are occurrences of undocumented immigrants still coming into our country through Arizona. Do you have a position on the border crisis?
My position on the border crisis is that it is a federal issue. I don't mandate immigration. I don't mandate, building walls. And a lot of people constantly want to ask state legislators what their position on it. It's well-founded law that the Supreme Court of the United States has ruled. Those issues are federal issues. I will say this in regards to our neighbors to the south. One of our largest trading partners, we, I think, need to strengthen our ties with those on the other side. We get a lot of services and value from that relationship, and I want to see that relationship will continue. And I think that rather than trying to create division, we need to find ways to strengthen those relationships. It's important to the U.S. economy, and it's extremely important to the Arizona economy.
And Ms. Peña?
Well, I agree with Garland. This is definitely a federal issue. There's only so much that we could do as state representatives. But one thing that, as I heard that question, I was concerned about, I hope that we are being better at keeping track of where are our COVID numbers coming from, because then they could give a skewed, if we're not being careful where they're coming from, then we have a skewed idea of how we're doing with curbing the spread here and taking care of this pandemic happening. And it's impacting even those children. Another thing, since we are talking about it, and I know this is something that is very controversial, and I am Latina and I am a Republican, they always like to say that we are anti-immigrant. Both of my parents are immigrants. I'm very proud to come from an immigrant community. I grew up surrounded by immigrants, mainly talking in Spanish, going to church in Spanish, and doing everything within the Latino community. I'm very, very compassionate and empathetic to people going through these different circumstances, whether they have their papers or not. Here's one thing that we got to understand. When we're talking about trafficking's happening also on the border. And so when our federal officials are trying to find solutions to solve that, they're trying to save women, they're trying to save children. And we need to understand that this isn't anything about racism. This is about protecting people and about fighting criminal organizations that run the border. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a proper system of entry and exit from a country. I've lived outside of the US before. I lived in Germany for 2 years, and I had to have a visa when I was there, and I had to follow the laws. And I visited many other countries that they have stricter laws than we do here. And that's, it's something that we as Americans need to have a lot of pride and joy for. And encourage people and fix the system where it needs to be solved. Of course, that needs to be done federally. So I am for supporting candidates that will actually get it done instead of just be talking. So that's where I stand on that. And I just want everyone to know that I am very much aware of the situation that many of our people here, whether they be DACA or any people of different immigration statuses are going through. And I want to have those conversations to be there for you as well.
Well, and while it's appropriate to say that immigration technically is a federal issue, Arizona in particular has been well known for taking on immigration policy at the state legislature. And Mr. Shreves, you mentioned trade. Mexico is Arizona's largest trade partner. The trade with Mexico is 5 times that of the highest trading partner for Arizona. So do you believe that Arizona is perceived as an anti-immigration state? And if so, does that affect the state's ability to attract new business or even tourism?
I will say that I don't believe that Arizona in and of itself today is perceived as an anti-immigration state. I think that you've seen from both the House and the Senate delegations of both parties have strengthened ties and relationships with Mexico and Latin America as a whole. I've traveled to Latin America, Mexico many times a year, to Brazil, and I can just tell you the perceptions that many Americans have, really, if you go there, are just not what they really think. To more answer your question, I don't think that Arizona is perceived as an anti-immigration state. You will recall, if you've been here a long time, I'm a lifetime Arizona native. Yes, there was a period where people would advance legislation that was of a federal nature. And that's why I said a moment ago, the Supreme Court struck that stuff down. It is not within the purview of the state to legislate federal matters. I support having a very, very strong relationship with not just Mexico, but with Latin America as a whole. Most people don't realize that much of the vegetables and the fruits and the nuts that we get that are on our dinner tables come from south of the border. They play a very large role in our economy on many levels. And we need to be more, I think, respectful of that relationship and make them feel welcome. I can tell you that anytime I've ever been to Mexico or Brazil for business trips, I've always been made to feel welcome to their country. And it made me pause to realize that oftentimes people from Mexico who come here are not made to feel the same way I was made to feel when I traveled to their country. And it really set me back, and I was set back by that. And I wish it were different, but I can tell you, as long as people like me and Tatiana run and talk about the positives and the importance of those relationships, we're going to have greater, better ties and a better community because of it.
And Ms. Peña?
Like Garland, again, I was raised with immigrants, purely immigrants. And I can tell you, my parents, they were successful. They have had the American dream. They own their own home. And I know people that came even without their documents, and they are doing so well. I mean, so look at Arizona. Look at how diverse we are. Look at the South Side. Look at South Phoenix, Laveen, Guadalupe, and look at these successes. I think that there's this tendency to always want to create division and divide, especially within the communities, the Latino community, to make us feel, and immigrant community, any immigrant community, to make people feel like as if they're not welcome. But the truth of the matter is there are very few people that actually have that attitude. I think a lot more people want to have everyone integrated, to be part of this, because that's what our nation was founded on. I also agree that we need to have a good, strong trade agreements between us and Mexico, Latin America, because all these countries, we're so connected, and, we're sharing the same continent. So guess what happens if we are able to have good, successful trade we help those nations, they help us, you know, and then we see that they're being more prosperous. When they have more prosperity, we have more prosperity. You know, when you have a family member, when you have a father or a mother that has family still in Central America, and they have to send them money because they're struggling over there, that really shows you how important it is with our relationship here in the US between us and the trade in Latin America, and making sure that they're not starving over there, that they have opportunities, because it's not fair. It's not fair if we do not have a balance between that.
Thank you. We have a follow-up question that came in from a voter to one of the earlier questions that we had. And so I want to remind folks again, if you have a question that you want to submit, you can do so by email, debates@kc-a.com, by text 928-362-1062, or by phone 480-937-1297. So the next question is going to take us back to one of our original questions, and again about police funding. And in regards to the conversation not necessarily being about defunding the police, but shifting the funding to other areas such as social services to help people in the community.
I'll go ahead. I'm going to start it right now. Okay, here's the deal. I didn't get to say this yet, but I need to say it, okay? Our current incumbents say a lot, and they don't do it. The community justice pledge that Garland and I had written on June 2nd, it was in response to that original letter that one of our incumbents and several of his colleagues had written on the same date, June 2nd of 2020. In this letter, they were actually writing it to Governor Ducey, asking Governor Ducey to open an emergency legislative session. You have to remember, they had voted maybe a few weeks to a month before to end the session because of COVID-19. They were afraid for COVID-19. But then with, George Floyd incident, they felt that we needed to do a police reform and bring up all these things. And so they had that letter asking Ducey for an emergency session. Please do this so that we can take on these issues. Few weeks later, we see that the Republicans are trying to also open an emergency session for any issue. Now, it could be for this police reform, or it could be for COVID-19 issues, for helping the small businesses, for education, whatever, right? But they wanted an emergency session. We had about half of our sitting Republicans in the state of Arizona in favor of opening. Do you know how many Democrats voted in favor? None. And you know what? Our current incumbent signed that pledge asking Ducey to have that emergency session. And there's multiple examples where I see.
Rios did not. Remember that. She did not sign that.
No, she didn't. But I will tell you, Bolding did. And so, so I've seen examples of this where they say they want to do something, but they're not actually doing it. They've had so many opportunities.
So let's take it back a step here and take that out of the equation and assume that the legislature was going to convene, or that it's now, let's say you're in and you're an elected member of the state house or the state senate for you, Mr. Shreves. Do you feel that the funding for services should be reappropriated? Do you think that police and communities should be looking at how some of those funds should be going toward community-based services?
I think that we can allocate monies to community-based services, but for this district, and I can't speak for all communities or all citizens, cities, I'm going to speak for my district from my perspective. We need a police station here in Laveen. We need more law enforcement in this district to address the crime. We have people's homes that are being burglarized or their cars burglarized every single night. My son and my children live in this district as well. They had a vehicle stolen from their driveway twice in 1 month. So this isn't an anomaly. So the idea that we can form, I had watched Miranda in the Capital Times debate or question, whatever they want to call it. It stated that when there was domestic violence, that they would send counselors out. That's absurd. We don't need that kind of greater community spending. What we do need is what I spoke of earlier, the PALs, Police Athletic League, That's the kind of money that we need to be spending so that the police can develop relationships one-on-one with individuals within our community so that they can see the police in a different light and the police can see the community in a different light. Because right now, the way we have it set up, when police meet with the public, it's usually in a negative way. And so we want to try to change that. And I'm willing to take monies to create greater community policing. So when I say that, maybe you and I are saying the same thing. I'm willing to divert money for that, but I am not willing to divert money away from public safety for the sake of trying to appease a bunch of people who have no clue what the people who live in this district are confronted with every night with gunfire, car break-ins, home burglaries, and homicides. We need to get real because that's what this is.
I'd like to add to that if that's okay. So I agree with that. We shouldn't be taking away from law enforcement. In fact, they were actually working in a bipartisan way, Republicans and Democrats in the state this year to pass real criminal justice reform. That includes taking care of the issues of people suffering from mental illness and addiction. Those are when they're talking about allocating some of that funds, this was being discussed, but not taking away from law enforcement. It was finding different ways to allocate the funds for that. Criminal justice reform was something that was being done bipartisanly, but again, instead of actually passing it, they signed it in the House, but then when it was going to go to the Senate, they decided that they were more concerned for COVID-19. Now, I would believe that, but 2 weeks later, you saw them out in the streets protesting about the injustices with police officers and, targeting people of color. And so I'm like, how is it that you were afraid to go finish your legislation for criminal justice reform that would take care of these cases where you need counseling, where you need people to intervene beforehand to keep them from getting, targeted by officers and getting into our criminal justice system? But their actions speak louder than that. So again, they also didn't want that emergency session. We were really close to passing some criminal justice reform bills in Arizona, but they decided to sine die. They decided to end the legislative session, and there that went.
Just to take really quick, I apologize, but to pick up where she just said is that what people don't realize is that the senator of this district, the incumbent, Rebecca Rios, actually was the one who made the motion to sine die, which is to end the session, and then she voted along with Republicans to end it. And they had received legislation from the House in a bipartisan manner, which is really rare for our state. But there was a lot of bipartisan bills that were sent to the Senate that they chose to not ever listen to or hear or let see this light of day, if you will. Instead, they were more interested in being able to get out on the campaign trail. The public doesn't understand that while the Senate was in session, or the House, they could not go out and campaign or receive campaign donations. So it was really important for them to end the session so they could get out rather than address the small businesses in Arizona, the child care issues, the criminal justice reform bills. And that should really, really frustrate people. It does me because I live in this district and I was negatively impacted by it.
Well, let's go back to the conversation on COVID, since that is something that we just can't escape right now. And in terms of both of you had mentioned quite a bit during some of the earlier comments about your thoughts on having children return to school. So now that the superintendent and the governor have set the standards for what will be required for students to return to the classroom, physical classrooms, it doesn't look like any of our counties are even near to that happening. So do either of you, and we'll start with you, Mr. Shreves, do you feel that the state as a whole has done enough to stop the spread of COVID? And should the governor or the State Department of Health Services gone a step further and required a statewide mask mandate?
Well, here's the news shocker for you. Are you ready, Michelle? COVID will never go away. It'll never, ever go away. And we need to find some normalcy in how we're going to live life. We talked earlier about children who are at risk at home, not able to report the abuse that they're suffering or get breakfast or lunch. We need to find a way that we can make teachers feel safe at school. When I heard that these plans of returning to school, children are very tactile. They're going to be sticking their hands in their mouth. The possibility of spreading a virus is very, very likely. But the reality is this: We have to, as human beings, socialize and live. And we need to find a way of what that is going to look like. So I don't think that we have adequately taken some of the steps necessary to address it. Let me give you one of them. I'm so glad you asked the question. Do you know that we've given orders to close gyms and restaurants and businesses and wear masks or don't wear masks, all of these things. But the one thing that the health department has always had the ability to do that you and I haven't heard, which really, really bugs the heck out of me, is that if you are deemed to be infected, that you've tested positive, that there's no order that demands that you stay home. Do you know that long in the books of the Arizona Department of Health have always had the ability, if you had a contagious disease that represented a public health hazard, like they say COVID-19 is, to be able to order you to stay home? Do you know that we've never ordered anyone, to my knowledge, that they had to stay home? It's been a recommendation. If you really want to protect people and you're identified as being infected, stay the hell home. The government, the health department should order that. And then we should allow people to take personal responsibility on, do they want to go to the gym? No one's going to force you, Michelle, to go to the gym, or anyone else who wants to go to the gym. I think to single out landlords and gyms and businesses, I'm a business owner. My wife and I are business owners. And I can tell you our business has been significantly harmed by this. There are smaller businesses that have signed personal leases of personal guarantees. Their futures are going down the drain. And we have elected officials that have done jack. They have sat on the sideline and have said nothing. If I'm elected, I'm going to propose legislation that will limit any future governor's authority to do what's been done without consensus of the House and Senate. Because I think the House and Senate had a duty to all of the citizens of their districts to play a role with the governor in determining the direction that this went. To simply give this unlimited emergency power to the governor and then him declare that to give to city councils and county board of supervisors is absolute ridiculous. And I would absolutely, if elected, I intend to propose legislation and fight diligently to make sure that all elected officials are forced to take a stand and be a part of that decision. Because right now, these elected officials, they're going to be able to say 2020 hindsight. Well, they agree with the governor or they don't. Every elected official, and I don't care what their party is, they sat on the sideline, they've said jack, but a few of them. And they need to be held responsible. It's too late in this election cycle, but I hope in 2 years, we punish every one of them who said nothing.
Well, in regard to what is being done by the state and by the Department of Health Services, and Ms. Peña, we'll get to your answer on this, but I want to follow up on something you said about how the certain classes of businesses were allowed to reopen while others were not. So I would follow up, and Ms. Peña, we'll start with you, is did we reopen too early then? If we had to pick and choose which businesses that could stay open or which could remain closed, did the state reopen too soon, thus further delaying our ability to open all businesses and allow children to go back to school?
Well, I think this decision to force businesses to close and for everyone to do things a certain way, I think it was prematurely done. I think for us to reopened to even close, the thing is, there are other states that they didn't do this. There are countries that they didn't do this. And that's the reality of fact. You see a report that's being told to you on the news, but if you actually look outside of our country, other countries that have been going through this and what they've experienced as well, and then you see they took different measures. We could put guidelines in place for businesses of how to be, safety guidelines. You can do that. But what we ultimately did is we put a lot of people in a really rough spot with their personal businesses, with the schools, with the children, the number of suicides, the number of, abuse taking place at home. We don't even know these numbers right now. We really don't even know the numbers because
we took personal responsibility away from people. We're in all of this. Did the government ever say we are the best deciders for the public? how is it that you would think, Michelle, are you going to purposely risk your health? I don't think so. And I think the vast majority of voters who believe that wearing a mask is important are going to wear a mask. There are some who will not wear a mask. But at the
So
end
when
of the
it comes to in order of public health, you feel the government doesn't play a role in maintaining public health?
I think the government plays a very important role in maintaining public health as long as it makes sense. You know, we have had a knee-jerk response to this from the very onset. I believe that we closed businesses way too soon before we reached a certain target. Here's a fact for you. Not every director of public health of the 15 counties in Arizona supported the closing when the governor ordered that closing. It's a fact, okay? So what I am saying is that we probably made some mistakes early on because we weren't really sure what we were really dealing with. The problem is, Michelle, how do we dig ourselves out of this hole today? Because COVID's not going to wait. Can you say that? COVID's not going to go away. What will life look like next year? How are businesses going? So ultimately, here's what I'm going to tell you is going to happen, Michelle, whether I'm elected or not. People are going to get sick of this BS, and they're going to force the government to let people be responsible for themselves. The government will publish guidelines that said, hey, wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance. But ultimately, if you don't want to go to the doggone gym and be exposed potentially to a virus, then stay the hell home. That's your personal responsibility. You are the most important person in your public health decision.
Agreed. And going back to this, you know, look at our community. Okay, when they say that the numbers are going up within the Hispanic and the Black community, well, of course, because they are the essential workers. I mean, I almost find it an insult that they gave, you know, our community that label, essential workers, so that we feel more special because we're going to work and risking our lives.
Right.
And everyone else is being served. You know, I haven't heard anyone really say anything about that, but it's the truth of the matter. You know, I have friends that have caught COVID-19. Their entire families have caught COVID-19. They have gone through COVID-19. I know people that they had their preschools open because families still needed to have that child care center open. And, you know, the fact, all the data is showing that children are not, like young children, they're rarely catching it. I mean, really, really rarely catching it. And they're rarely spreading it. And it has been shown by these business owners that I know that they work with children. They haven't been having these outbreaks, and they've been taking precautions. They've been wearing masks. You know, the teachers wear masks. They sanitize. They wash hands. They do everything that logically should be done. What we did is we went to the extreme in our state, and for the governor to make that decision for the entire state. I mean, people go up north, go to different parts of Arizona. People don't live on top of each other. You know, they're not that close to their neighbors. So why would you mandate that in small towns? Why would you do that? It doesn't, you know, so I think for it to be done locally is better, but at the same time, the amount of restrictions that were put in place actually did more harm than good. And this virus isn't going.
Let's talk about education as it ties into that. One of the conversations that's long been held at the state legislature that the state legislature has authority over is putting parameters around the size of classrooms and how many students are in each classroom in that ratio of students to teachers. So now with COVID, looking at a hybrid model where students may re-enter the classroom at some point in this academic year, is now the time to address classroom size as the state legislature.
If you don't mind, Tatiana, I want to go on this really quick.
Okay, you go first.
Here's a novel idea, Michelle. This is where a lot of people forget. Every school district is responsible to the people within that district. And I respect the individual school districts to work with the parents and the families in those districts to develop plans that they believe are acceptable in helping to follow whatever guidelines the government has come out with to be as safe as possible. Remember, I told you early on, children put their hands in their mouth, they touch everything. That's what children do. We're not going to stop that. You're not going to be able to get a kindergartner to wear a mask all day. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to be able to get special need kids to be able to do those things. In fact, you're not going to be able to get them even now to use a computer because they don't know how to read. So the thing that I would say to you is we need to give some guidance to school districts, respect the school board that's been elected by the people who send their children to those schools to develop the response to COVID-19. And remember, it shouldn't just be just COVID-19. It should be any type of potential hazard to the children should be addressed by the individual school boards. I would like to see the governor develop standards along with the Board of Education or the legislature that allows school districts to set those parameters. I believe that if a school district creates value for the services they provide to their community, the community will in turn give them more money. Some entities want the state to bypass the local parents and the mechanism for funding for schools and make the state come up with some other method. I support allowing individual school districts to be able to go directly to the people within their school district to say, look, we need greater funds. This is why we need it. Let me tell you what we're going to use it for, whether it's smaller class sizes or new buildings, whatever it may be, to get those funds. However, what's funny is that those that would oppose my perspective think that it should come from some other source. But the reality is school districts serve local neighborhoods. Local neighborhoods should decide if they get the value from their school or not. And I support schools creating value that translates into the public being able to understand that who receive those services. How can that be a bad deal?
All right, Ms. your take?
Yeah, so I was a teacher for several years. I was raised by two public school teachers. And as a teacher teaching young little ones, I mean, we're talking about preschool, kinder, and first grade, these kids were always getting sick. And we had terrible sanitary measures at that time. And so I'm really grateful that COVID-19 actually came, because now we're seeing, you know what, we need to do better in our education system to make sure that we sanitize it, we take precautions more seriously. We shouldn't be allowing children to go to school sick. And I don't know how many times children were sent to school sick. And so that's why everyone got sick. So we're now looking at ways that we can make it better, not just because of COVID-19, but now it could be for any virus that might come to play in our community. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is that I have talked to different schools around us. Some of them have already opened. They're not forcing everyone to do in-person learning. Some of them have, the online option for the families to decide, we want to take it slowly. We want to see how the numbers, how everything works out. And then some of them have a hybrid where, you go for just certain amount of days. They're able to take these class sizes and keep them small. Another thing is school choice. Garland and I are the only ones that are going to protect your rights here in LD27 to have school choice. We are the only ones. The others want to take away your charters, your private, your ESAs. They want to take away your homeschool. They just want you to be forced at your public district school that you are assigned to. I grew up in South Phoenix and I saw these schools. I went to these schools. Not until you are from the area, you grow up going to these schools, you see bloody fistfights every single day at the playground, and you have that as a normal thing in your life. You see, you know what? This isn't what other children are facing in other communities. And the other children, they were so blessed because they were living in Paradise Valley, the Arcadia. Well, guess what? School choice now balanced the playing field, and we can send our kids to better schools, and we should fight to defend that. Another thing with school choice is it allows for our class sizes to get smaller. I know for a fact that our public school district here in South Phoenix, they have smaller class sizes now. So they can accommodate, they can make it work out. We need to protect the teachers. That's what we really have to do, is because it's really the adults and older children that are the ones that can catch the virus and can spread the virus. But if you're talking about little ones, hey, my oldest, she's in first grade, okay? I have a first grader, I have a pre-K fourth grader, I have a 2-year-old, and I'm expecting my 4th daughter right now, okay? So these kids were giving me anxiety every time we went out in public, because, if you know these kids' ages, they're licking everything, they're rolling on the ground, and you got 4 of them, it's like herding cats. I decided, I need to study COVID-19. I need to study how this impacts children. Are they going to get me sick? Do I have to be, losing my head every time I go out in public with these kids? And you know what? how much peace of mind I had when I did the research. Because again, we have to look at the worldwide research. There are over 20 countries that have already opened up their schools, and they have the data. They've done different things. And all of them agree. Children 9 and under, they're pretty safe. They're pretty safe. It's the adults we need to protect, and we need to take those measures to protect them, take sanitary precautions, make smaller class sizes. It's possible. We need to look outside the box and make it happen for the state of Arizona to protect our families, to help these essential workers that they have been taken advantage of and haven't had anyone that's trying to help them with their current situation in their home.
Well, thank you. We are getting close to wrapping up, so I just want to make sure we get to some of these questions that have been coming in for the voters. So I'll do my best to get to the several that have come in the last few minutes. I feel like we're really going to switch gears on this question, and Garland had joked at the beginning that he hopes I throw something hard-hitting, so here you go. It's from a voter. The question for both of you, and then there's a follow-up from Ms. Peña, is what is your take on the divisive rhetoric from our president? And Ms. Peña, I believe you're a supporter of President Donald Trump. How are you supporting someone so divisive and knowing how impactful rhetoric can affect social impacts, social aspects of society?
I think it's a biased question. I'm going to say that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tatiana, but that's a bias. To certainly say that that it's rhetoric, I would have preferred you have said, hey, the president is viewed as divisive. I think that's a fair statement. But to say that his views are necessarily rhetoric because you may be a liberal and don't like those, I would take exception to that. So I would rephrase the question, or I wouldn't answer it if I were you, Tatiana.
Well, this is how the question came in. So
yeah, it's a biased question. Why don't we agreed that we wouldn't ask those kind of questions. So rephrase the question to be less rhetoric and more, to the point.
Well, I'm not afraid to. I'm not afraid.
I know you're not. But I just think it's wrong to do it.
No, I agree. I think it's, it's sad to see that the division coming from the other side. That's how they treat people. I'm a pro-lifer. And I'm a Latina that was raised with the moral values that Latinos believe in. We're Latinos, not Latinx. That doesn't even exist in our community in Spanish. And it's an insult to us. It's an insult to everyone who speaks Spanish, native Spanish speakers, immigrants from Latin America, to try to take our culture and change it around. And that's the same thing that they do. They try to scare us, and they try to say, you know what, you need to vote only Democrat. You know what, I don't buy into that. I look at the candidates. I look at their platform. From 2016, they tried to say that President Trump was racist against immigrants. I understood what this man was talking about. I was following. I heard him say he wanted to take care of DACA recipients. And I have seen this is the one and only president that is actually following up on the promises that he has made. As Latinos, this is something that I've always been very passionate about. I want to fix our immigration system. I can't do it as a state legislator. I want it to be done federally, but you need to have a president who actually means it, says it and means it. And that is what this president has been doing. Now, what's sad is the other side thinks that, oh, well, you vote for Donald Trump. Oh, that makes you sound really bad. Guess what's the other option? Joe Biden? Really? I mean, why would I don't know why I would vote for Joe Biden. Everything that they're saying is because Donald Trump is evil. Okay, well, I've actually studied the man. I've seen what he's been doing, prison reform for the federal level. He's been giving money to the HBCUs. He's been helping the Black community. He's been helping the Hispanic community. He's taking care of immigration. He cares about Venezuela. So I see a president, it's like, wow, that's crazy. He's not at all what they're saying on the other side. I don't think he's divisive at all. I think what's sad is that the other side doesn't have a leg to stand on. And so that's what they have to do. They have to attack the current sitting president. And, if they think that by bullying me and by telling me, oh, well, you're a President Trump supporter, I'm like, of course I am. I'm a pro-lifer and I stand by my values. So, I mean, it is what it is. I'm happy to support the president. I'm happy to be a proud Latina, to speak up for the community. And when I see that there are injustices happening, I will speak up, even in my own party. And there have been times where I have crossed paths and I've spoken opposite to what people were saying. I'm not afraid to do that.
Well, we have time for about one more question, so I will throw this out for both of you. It's a voter question that just came in, and it's very specific to your district, so hopefully you're ready for this one. LD27, as you know, comes northward of McDowell and 40th Street. The boundary is not only South Phoenix. Living in the northern part of the district, they say they never get any help. Crime is increasing in some areas 7 to 8 times more over the past 3 years.
Mhm.
They call for a need for police, not only in South Phoenix or Levine. They feel the current LD27 leadership ignores them. Will you listen to them, and will you help out, and how?
First off, if you don't mind me going, I'll go first, Tatiana, if you're okay with that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm aware of how the district narrows down to McDowell, and I'm also very much aware about the homelessness that exists in our district, not just the crime. But I actually have a plan to help address the resources, the funding that's going to be necessary to address it. There is a mechanism to do it, and I actually have ideas that I would like to explore with bringing community partners together. Because like I said, it's not just one, it's not going to be a political party, and it's not going to be an individual that solves this issue. It's people working together to one, even acknowledge that we have a problem. I've had people say, well, Garland, you talk about the crime in the district, whether it's in the north part of the district or the south part of the district, or whether it's in Levine, and that's just scaremongering. The crime is worse over in Maryville or somewhere else. And my attitude is this: if my house has an issue and it's broken down, just because my neighbor's house is worse than mine doesn't mean I shouldn't fix my house. So I want to say to that voter, that to that question, that you have my word that if I'm elected senator in this district, I will wake up every day and I will work every single day to address the issues. I believe that everyone deserves to feel safe in our district. If you go to my website, garlandaz.com, you will see that that is a fundamentally resounding message that I have. I don't live in a gated community like some of our elected officials in this district do. I live in a district where people can drive into my neighborhood, drive out of my neighborhood, and I do that because I want everyone to know that I care as much about crime, and I don't suffer a delusion or a fallacy that because I live in a gated community, which I don't, that I'm somehow, those people are safer. The issues of crime and the people who are attacked at gas stations, Circle K's, and parking lots is real. And I'm going to go to work when I become elected senator for this district. I'm going to do something about it. You have my word on it.
Well, you said you have a plan. Do you care to elaborate on that?
Well, what it is there are pockets of money that exist in our community that as an elected official that we can go and talk to other entities to try to secure to address those issues. And I intend to use political pressure to get that money that exists, that's out there. When I'm told initially, no, Garland, I won't give you the money, then I'm going to go sweep those accounts. I'm going to propose legislation, expose where that money is, and say, look, either give us the money to help fight this criminal activity and improve the quality of life for everyone. You know, we have people in this district in LD27 that live by drug-infected parks that are criminally ridden, where people who live there, who are Democrats, who've told me, Garland, I'm going to vote for you because you and Tatiana are talking about the crime. You're talking about wanting to do something about it, and you've not been afraid to shine a spotlight on those issues. So the money is out there. You just have to have the ability to bring the political pressure to bear to get it, and I will get it to do something.
Ms. Peña?
So I've actually been running for office since last, I think September it was, and I have driven and walked pretty much every area of our district. So I have seen that part of downtown Phoenix, and I have seen how much crime there is. We have a huge homeless population issue as well going on in there. That's part of the reason why I'm really strong for criminal justice reform, because criminal justice reform isn't just about the prison system, it's about everything leading up to that. And that includes helping our homeless population, helping bring resources to them, helping them be able to help themselves. And yes, mental illness and drug addiction. This is what it's all about, is trying to solve these issues. Like I said, our incumbents said that they're for it, but they're not doing it. They're not doing it. If they really wanted to get it done, they could have gotten a great piece of legislation done this session. They could have done, the legislation that was going through. It was for non-violent offenses for early exit out of the system. So people who have been wrongfully put in the system, that it tars them for the rest of their lives. Drug possession, for instance, right? And now they have to leave the system and they don't have a right chance. We need to stop doing this. We need to stop putting the wrong people in jail for the smallest little tiny offenses. We need to help rehabilitate people and get them out of that system and get them from even getting there. Because guess what? When you're a teacher like I was, and you have your little first grader on a Monday morning sitting in circle time, and the thing that he tells you that happened over the weekend is daddy came from jail, that's when it hits you. This is happening to our little ones. Like I said, from the very beginning, no one talks about the kids. No one talks about their needs. Everyone's talking about adults and arguing with each other. We're forgetting the children. We're forgetting their needs. We're forgetting that child is going to be impacted for the rest of their life. And so these are the things that I'm very much aware of. I want to work together with our state legislature, with the people. That's the thing. I want to be the voice in the majority for South Phoenix here. We haven't had a voice in the majority. I want to be that voice to make sure, hey, you know what? Don't forget us here on the South Side. Don't forget us. We're the heart of Phoenix. You don't forget the heart of Phoenix. You stand up for the heart of Phoenix. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I have seen it and I want to take care of it. That's why I decided to run.
Michelle, really quick, I know our time is limited. I was told earlier we might go a little over, if that's okay with you. I want to just mention something really quick, if it's all right, about our criminal justice system. In Arizona, on almost any given day, we have approximately 43,000 people incarcerated. The vast majority of those incarcerated are there for nonviolent offenses that are drug-related offenses, around 34,000. Less than 1,000 people that are incarcerated are actually getting drug rehab or counseling. And then we give them long prison sentences. We disconnect them from their families. We create other social issues as a result of it. And then we put them back out on the street. And we wonder why out of every 6 released today, 5 will return to prison generally within 9 years. I want to see that what we've been doing for the last 7 decades, we stop doing that. We spend $1.3 billion on incarcerating people in our state, okay? I want to take, and you talk about reallocating law enforcement money, I want to reallocate money to reentry programs that help people get substantive, livable wage jobs, not working at somebody's farm and making a wage that they can't go get an apartment and have the American dream. That's why our recidivism rate is so high. It's part of the criminal justice reform that Tatiana and I are talking about. And when people say conservative Republicans don't care about that, we haven't maybe had honest conversation about what the real high cost, both in human and financial, to us as a society. What we've been doing doesn't work. And I don't care what your political party is, we need to find a mechanism and a way to do it different so that we can help people be successful so we're not paying for them. And it isn't just we pay for them when they go to prison, we pay for the babies they make if they don't get drug treatment, when they hook up with baby drug mama and create a foster child that goes into the system that may be there for years. The upfront money that we spend today will save us a lot of money down the road. I am pleading with the public to listen to my message, to listen to Tatiana's message, and give us a chance. This district has not had a voice like ours to work with the majority, to bring bills and discussion to the forefront. I think you can tell I'm passionate and I'm loud, and I'm going to make people listen to us. We can't continue to do what we're doing to human beings and it be okay. We have to change.
Well, that's a great segue into thanking you both for your comments and responding to the voter questions that were submitted tonight. And a thank you to the voters who tuned in and submitted questions. So Tatiana, let's have you go first with your closing remarks.
Well, thank you for having me here. And thank you for everyone who turned in the questions, even if they were tough questions. I want people to know that I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide. And you know what? We won't always agree on everything 100%, but I can tell you that my heart is completely in this. When I decided on my logo, last year, I had no idea we'd be facing what we're facing today. I had no idea that COVID-19 would be our issue. I had no idea that there'd be so much division in our country leading up to an election. Well, I thought that would happen, but I had no idea it'd be this crazy. But I wanted people to understand the message behind it. It's about love. Our community is constantly being thrown down, put down. You turn on the news, every time you hear about South Phoenix, Laveen, Guadalupe, downtown Phoenix, you don't hear good news. You hear bad news. You hear about crime. You know what? That's an offensive thing for someone who grew up in South Phoenix, in the South Side like me. This is home. And the thing is, a lot of times there have been a lot of successful people from South Phoenix, from the South Side, or Guadalupe, or any of these areas that, you know, sometimes they leave a community and they don't come back. That's not me. This is my home. This is where I'm raising my kids. And I want to do whatever I can to make our community better and help people be more prosperous. My opportunities and experiences that I've had outside of the community have really helped impact me and see things from a different perspective of why our community keeps seeing the same things. I see that our current elected officials say that they're doing something, but they're not actually doing it. And it's pretty easy to find the proof of it. You just watch the sessions, you follow what they're doing, you listen, and you just keep an eye on them like an eagle, like I have. And then that's when you start saying, wow, they're not being honest with us. Well, I want you to know that I am your essential worker. I will be your essential elected official. If I have to get myself in a hazmat suit, in a plexiglass box, with an oxygen mask to do a vote that will help bless our community that is suffering because their small businesses are going under, or because their families need health care and help for health care. If it's something with the foster system, if it's something with our schools, I will vote, because you know what? That is the job of a legislator. They are there to serve you. You are not there to serve them. We are here to serve you. Please elect me. Go ahead and visit my page, www.tatianapeña4az.com, or follow me at Facebook at Peña4az. Feel free to reach out to me, ask questions. You know, we're going to be doing a lot of public events. I know there's a Latinos for Trump office off of 24th Street and Baseline. We're going to be hosting a lot of great events there. That's why I'm really grateful for it, because guess what? It gives the opportunity for voters to come and learn. We're going to be talking about immigration. We're going to be talking about helping those people who do not have their papers. What can they do to get better? We're going to be talking about school choice. We're going to be talking about family issues, about protecting the innocence of our children. We're going to be talking about pro-life issues, about faith, all these different issues, whatever matters to you. We're interested in having specialists there and give this available for the community, because we want our community to get better. We want our community to be more prosperous, and for everyone to have a real chance at the American dream. And I would add the Arizona dream.
And lastly, Mr. Shreves.
I'm going to actually be shorter than Tatiana tonight. Normally I'm the talker, but I'm going to be shorter. You know, I want to remind people that I grew up like Tatiana in this district. She and I are the only candidates that were born and raised in this district. We have deep roots in this district. I grew up in a multicultural home. So I come with a very much a multi-perspective, if you will, of both what it is to live in a home of color and one that is perceived not to be. So it's the way I was raised. I very much identify with the Latino community because I grew up here and I grew up in a multicultural home. I grew up poor, and I feel extraordinarily blessed to be where I am in life right now. And this is a journey for me of giving back to my community. I feel that my life experiences have shaped who I am as a person, and I hope that it gives me the ability to be that voice that I talked about for those who don't feel anyone listens to them or cares about them. There are people that are hurting in this district. We have children every night that are going to bed that could be that vulnerable child, or the child who doesn't have enough food, or there could be healthcare issues. I want to promise the people of this district that I am first and foremost a member of the human race, and I will always do what I believe is right to address the emotional and spiritual needs of people in this district without any regard to their color or their sexual orientation label or the religious label or any of those things. People matter the most. And if some of you have driven around the city, you may have seen some of my signs that say kindness matters. I truly believe that. Human kindness matters towards one another, first and foremost above political party. And I hope that whatever anyone takes away from that, that they remember that our humanness should not be lost in the visceralness of politics at the end of the day. And I hope you'll vote for me.
Well, thank you, both of you. This concludes our debate. And to both of you, our candidates, we thank you so much for participating tonight. To the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourselves before the November 3rd election. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is your source for nonpartisan voter information. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for all of your voting needs. Thank you again. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.